All right, so today I wanted to start by talking about something that kind of bothers me. It doesn't really make any sense, and it is the deaths by province. Now, again, we have people that are out there talking like, if you read through the paranoid doomsday, if you go on like r/Alberta or r/Edmonton when it comes to anything to do with the virus, when it comes to, I mean, you look through the Twitter comments of Hinshaw or Kenny, especially Hinshaw, it's just mindless paranoid delusions. Um, but and for the simple reason that these people think that it's literally going to be doomsday, right? Oh, it's going to be doomsday. The hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. We're all going to die. But the thing I wanted to point out here is okay, so people are pointing out that Alberta currently has the most active cases, which again, we've been over it a million times. Cases do not matter. I mean, like over half of them are false positives, and of the ones that are positive, a lot of those are asymptomatic cases, meaning like the vast majority of cases do not matter. They could be less than meaningless. They don't matter. So again, now that we have that out of the way, let's look at the death numbers here. So again, you have Ontario with 3,759, Quebec with 7,183, Alberta with 590, BC 492, Manitoba 362. As far as the other provinces go, it's not a big deal. But again, we got the major provinces here, right? And the first thing that people should notice, and if you're paying attention even remotely, you would notice that, hey, why is the Quebec number so high? And that begs the question is why is all you're hearing in the media about how bad Alberta's doing? Like why is that the now the answer to that is very simple. I mean it's incredibly simple to answer that question and the answer is simply I mean number one, we have a conservative premier and number two, we have of all the premiers the one that's been the most laissez-faire when it comes to this whole situation. No, again, he's still I think far too he's gone way too far still, if you ask me, and I think the evidence clearly points to that. But that's why the media is so on him, and that's why you have these paranoid, delusional, tinfoil hat wearing, we're all gonna die people that think that we're the worst province, even though we're not even close. I mean, if you look at the numbers, I think Quebec has about double the population of Alberta. So that means that Quebec should have about, 1,100, 1,200 cases, 1,200, right? Let's just say 1,200. They have 7,183. So they're like 4 or 5 times more cases than Alberta when you adjust for population, right? So why are they not talked about more? I think Ontario only has about, I think it's 3 or 4 times. So again, even per capita, Ontario still has more deaths and by a pretty good amount. The other thing too, BC. I mean, BC has I think a slightly higher population than Alberta, but again, they have less than 100 less dead. What about Manitoba? I think they have much lower population than Alberta. I think it's like a quarter, and yet they have about two-thirds of the deaths as Alberta does. So again, why is it in the media that all you're hearing about is how bad Alberta is doing? Well, again, like I said, it's very simple, and that it's entirely a propaganda. It's entirely designed to propagandize people into thinking that the only way to get through this is draconian lockdowns and mask mandates till the end of time. Like that's what they're trying to do. And it's like I say, this is something that's really bothering me, and that this is the other thing that people are starting to bring up too. Now that the death numbers have ticked up a little bit, even though, to be fair, a lot of them are deaths of people that didn't actually die recently. They're just included in the death numbers now. And this is what people are bringing up is, oh, well, people are dying. Well, why weren't you as paranoid when it came to Quebec, right? Like, why not? And again, the numbers don't make any sense, right? They don't make any sense whatsoever. And even right now, too, like, I mean, look at the um, Quebec, 28 new dead, Alberta 15. Again, that's pretty much even. That's pretty much even. So again, why are we not hearing more about Quebec? I mean, again, it's very simple. The mainstream media is incredibly biased against. It's not necessarily the West. I mean, it is the West to a degree. It's more or less the political aspects of it, right? Alberta and to a lesser degree Saskatchewan, we're the only, I mean, I think we're hanging by a thread, but we're the only non-leftist province left, and that's why the mainstream media is working overtime to try and discredit us, right? And again, like this is the thing that really bothers me as well that I always bring up too is that at what point do these people, I mean, this is the question I'm trying to get out of these people, and the fact that they've never answered it, just this is why I'm so confident in saying what I'm saying, is because if I was wrong, they would have a good answer, not, baseless attacks and just garbage. So yeah, I mean, if I was wrong about this, they would have a legitimate answer, and the fact that they don't, I think, is very telling that it's entirely a politically driven thing, right? It has nothing to do with slowing the spread or any of that garbage. There's 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 no evidence that the lockdowns, or sorry, they'll point to what they'll do is they'll say, oh, there is evidence, Australia or something along that answer. But again, what they don't tell you is that number one, if you were to be given a random map where you didn't know which place was which, you wouldn't be able, and let's say you got like 10, 20, 30 of them, nobody would be able to tell with a high degree of accuracy which places had lockdowns and which places didn't. And the fact that you can't do that just goes to show that the lockdowns don't work. Right now, again, I mean, they'll come up with a couple things to hit back at that. Number one, it'll be, oh, well, people aren't listening, or garbage, crap like that. But again, that's because you've been crying wolf for almost a year now. I mean, of course people aren't listening. And this is the thing that really bothers me about these people, is that they've clearly never taken a step back and thought to themselves, hey, am I the one that could I be wrong here? Like, could I be wrong? Like, they've never done that. And that's why I'm so outspoken when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because if you have a group of people that refuses to take a step back and consider whether or not they may be wrong, I think that is an incredibly scary group of people to be dealing with. And that's why this stuff is so polarizing. And again, speaking of crazy stuff, from Randy Hillier here, he said, OPP tasered my son in the back tonight in Perth. This crime. My son's friend went to the bar to order a beer and wasn't wearing a mask. The owner of the Arrow pub called the cops. My son stood up and explained their friend is exempt from mask wearing. They're both in jail. Again, like, is this the society we want to live in? Like, is this the society we want to live in? Like, getting tased? Like, can you not have a rational conversation with people? Like, seriously. And this is the thing I constantly hear from these people, and this is why, again, why I'm so outspoken and so vehement in what I say, and that these people, they don't want the best for you. They don't want. That doesn't necessarily mean that I think that they have bad intentions and they're twirling their mustache, laughing about how they're gonna, destroy people's lives. No, I think they genuinely believe that they're the good guys, right? They genuinely believe they're the good guys. The problem is that they live in such an echo chamber, and again, they'll make that argument back. But again, that's the stupidest argument I've ever heard, considering I probably watch more of where they get their news from than they do. Again, it's such a stupid argument, doesn't make sense. And here's the thing: if you understood what the other side believes, you should be able to articulate it in a relatively good manner. And I've never seen any of these people do that. In fact, I've never even seen most of the vast majority of them won't even attempt it. So again, like, the question here that I was asking is that is this the country we want to live in? Like, is this the country we want to live in? We just had, this whole Black Lives Matter garbage going on. Like, seriously, like, is this the country we want to live in? Like, it's the worst thing in the world, these, you have these people that are violently resisting arrest and running at the cops with a knife, but if the police use force against them, then they're the bad guys, right? They're the bad guys. But if the police tase someone for not wearing a mask, right? Like, not wearing a mask. Again, this is just absolute insanity. And again, speaking of that, too, another crazy story that I seen. This is from Australia, saying a Melbourne teenager is choked unconscious and thrown to the floor like a rag doll by hotel security for not wearing a mask. Again, like, how does this make any sense? Like, is this the society we want to live in? Like, just ask people to leave. Like, just ask them to leave. How hard is it? And this is the thing that I always bring up too, is that if your ideas need to be enforced in these ways, like, if your ideas need to be enforced in these ways, then I can almost guarantee you that you've went wrong somewhere along the way. I mean, there's a basic way to understand if someone's political view is completely effed up, like completely effed up, in that the more force they need to use, the more coercion they need to use to enforce their political worldview or any laws or rules they want to put in, the more coercion you need, the worse it is. Because if it was such a great idea, you wouldn't need to violently coerce people into going along with it. You wouldn't have to brainwash people and constantly spew propaganda at them to get them to go along with it, right? So again, it's just a basic thought there, like a basic thought. And like I say, this is the thing that really bothers me about these people is that they've clearly never taken a step back and said, "Hey, could I be on the wrong side here? Like, could I be on the wrong side?" And again, I do this all the time. I do this all the time. The difference being is that you continuously see the other side going further and further and further. Like, if I was wrong about this kind of stuff, 15 days to flatten the curve would have turned out to be 15 days to flatten the curve. The mask mandates would have been repealed by now. We would have admitted the lockdowns don't work. All these doctors and politicians would have came clean and said, "Yeah, we completely screwed up. We lied or misled the public, and now we're gonna be honest." But has any of that happened? No. So again, like for me to change course on this kind of stuff would be what would need to happen is number one, we'd have to acknowledge the mask mandates don't do anything. Number two, we'd have to acknowledge the lockdowns don't do anything because, again, the numbers clearly bear that out. Number three, we would need a incredibly, incredibly sincere apology, and not to mention, I think a lot of these people should have to lose their job. Like the people that made these decisions that clearly were not based in any form of evidence, fact, reason, logic, anything at all, they should lose their job. The TAMs of the world, they should lose their job, right? So again, and not to mention too, they should admit everything that they've done wrong up to this point, admit that they lied or at the very least misled the public. Like until that kind of stuff happens, like then yeah, we can have the conversation about some of the things that where I've gone wrong, which isn't that many. I mean, to mention the biggest things that I got wrong was believing in some of this garbage off the start. Um, but again, that's just the hypothetical things that would have to happen. Again, this is from Dr. David Samadi here. And again, I like to point out these charts because again, you have a lot of people that say, "Oh no, the lockdowns work. Look at this place." And again, what they don't tell you is that there's just as many or more places that completely contradict what they say. And again, you have this saying, Florida is the red line on the map. They have no restrictions and their economy is not entirely crippled. Notice how they have no noticeable surge in deaths. The numbers don't lie. So again, you compare them to New York. New York had a massive, massive spike. I mean, more than 10 times the amount of deaths. And I mean, I think this is just, yeah, this is deaths per million. So again, Florida ticked up a little bit here, but they never came anywhere close to where New York peaked at, right? They never even came close. So again, this is just another example of the lockdowns not working. There's no reason for it. And again, this is they have the leftists have a lot of examples. I mean, the common one they bring up is Australia. But what they don't tell you about Australia is that a lot of the places, in fact, it may even be the whole country, but I know for sure one of the big provinces that shut down, they locked down the province and there was like 10 cases in the whole province. Like just imagine us shutting down, a major province in Canada with like 10 cases. Like that's what they did. So when you have a shutdown with that few of cases, yeah, you're gonna reduce the cases, right? Of course you're gonna do it because there's so few that there was no need to do it in the first place, right? You shut down Alberta, you shut down Ontario, it's not going to do anything because there's already too many cases. It's just absolute insanity. And I think the other thing too is that people are, I think, becoming more and more fatigued by the day of this kind of stuff. People are just tired of it, and again, rightfully so. Like I'm about as tired as it is one can possibly be. And I think another thing to bring up too that people would say too, and this is the reason why I think the whole you want people to die, or at the very least you're okay with people dying. But no, the only way that those arguments make sense is if there was a clear correlation, not just a little bit, not you can point out one or two areas. No, there better be an incredibly tight correlation, near perfect, if not perfect correlation between the places that lock down and a reduction in cases. And when you look inside Canada, that's not true. In fact, if anything, it's the opposite. I mean, you look at You look at Ontario. I mean, they've had their quote unquote lockdown going on for more than 2 weeks now. I mean, has their cases went down dramatically? No. Like a lot of these big cities have had mask mandates for months. We were told, oh, it's going to reduce the cases, right? Like the mental gymnastics that these people have to play to justify their worldview is absolutely insane. Like it's absolutely insane. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links below. Follow me on those other platforms if you haven't already. And like I say, at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe and stay tuned for more.